Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. 2 bills, 9 questions, 1 test. Will they actually help growers? This is an important and timely conversation for our sector, so we're really glad that you've joined us. We are pleased to be joined by Fenton Hazelwood, who brings over 30 years of experience across the food and fibre sector. Fenton is well known for his practical, on-the-ground perspective and his ability to translate complex policy into real-world implications for growers. We encourage you to listen and reflect and think about how these proposed changes might impact your own operations. And if you have any questions, please type them into the question section and we will get to them at the end if there's time. With that, I'm going to hand you over to Fenton. Thank you, Fenton.
Thank you, Cherie, and thank you for the introduction. And thank you to Potatoes New Zealand for the opportunity to be here. So I'm quite pleased. Just what I'm going to attempt to do today is just show you and talk through some of the work I've done to gain a little bit of understanding on the 2 bills and how they may affect your business. And this kind of started from 9 honest questions I put together from a perspective of us as growers as to how these bills will and could affect us. So please hold your questions. As Cherie said, type them into the thing and we'll have plenty of time at the end to cover those. And I do hope I cover the 9 honest questions. So with that, I'll make way. And just excuse my voice, I'm just a little bit croaky, so it's all good though. So just what's actually before Parliament right now. So we have 3 bills really. There's the Bill 304-1, which is the Has No Amendment, and that comes under the umbrella of EPA, and the Minister for the Environment is Nicola Grigg. And then we have Bill 305-1, which is the ACVM amendment, and that comes under MPI, and the Minister for that is Andrew Hoggard, who I've had quite a bit to deal with on this, which is great. And then there's the Gene Tech Bill, which I won't go into a lot today, but it's just important to know that these 3 bills all connect to one another. I would hazard a guess, or I think it's fair to say that the Gene Tech Bill, should it get through Parliament, needs Bill 304 and Bill 305 in order to get that. So today it's kind of like the main thread we're doing is decision-making moves from Parliament, which moves to unelected officials, which really worries me, to be honest. 3 bills, 3 appointed powers, and 1 direction of travel. So onwards. So just those that remember last year, there was a regulatory review done that came out in January 25. It actually was slightly earlier than that, but that was when it was released to public. And then in February, the government and the ministries involved, those ministries being MPI and EPA, endorsed and very much got behind 16 recommendations. Now, I won't go through these in detail, but you can certainly find these, no problem. And I just grouped them. There's strategic direction, queues and assessment times, cross-system navigation, efficiency and proportionality, along with regulator resources, tools and engagement. So they kind of reviewed, well, they were key topics from the multi-page report that came out. So I'll just leave those there. Hopefully you've seen a bit of a glance on that. I'm sure you will have heard of some of these. They've been spoken about quite a lot. Moving forward, I thought I'd share the 9 questions that I spoke about, and I've put some articles out on Substack and on LinkedIn. And I'm not saying that to promote my Substack or anything, but just where I go into a little bit more detail. So first question, will this actually help farmers, growers and vets? What are the 6 things people need to know? Does this reduce the power of unelected officials? Will the system be simpler, faster and more certain? Will this reduce red tape and give certainty? Is industry feedback being used properly? Will anyone track whether this actually works? Will this actually fix the system? Is there a new tax hidden in Bill 304-1? So as I say, they were the 9 questions I wrote an article about, and I just wanted to look for what does it really do outside of reading the bills, which I can assure you isn't exciting reading, but I've had to do it just because I'm really interested in this topic. So, and what it does for us as growers and our food and fibre sector, I think it's extremely important. So just, will these bills practically help growers? So yes, in principle, products already approved overseas get a rapid pathway. In principle, a shorter wait, which is a good thing. There's been some great amendments in here. There's lower risk applications, label extensions, existing chemistry separate from complex ones. And in general, the complex ones are what are pivotal to our industry moving forward. And they're generally called Category C submissions, and they are new molecules or new biologicals that aren't in our system or registered in New Zealand at the moment. And for vets, more medicines available sooner from Australian approvals. It's poignant that we keep vet med in mind as well, because that comes under this and just as important for our animal health products. And then I've written, however, conditional on officials, and I've called it the killer clause because officials can move any application out of the fast track pathway, and they don't have to give any criteria or any reasoning as to why they did that. And that is a huge worry to me. There's also now no statutory timeframes in either bill. The rapid pathway is at the official's discretion, and it's not a right. These bills also create the possibility of faster approvals, of which they don't require. So a lot of these problems could have been sorted without any legislation or bills or law changes, etc. So I call it the killer clause. Officials can move any application out of the fast track pathway. Again, no criteria specified, no reasons given. And again, I'll comment again, that's quite worrying for me. So let's say that in the EPA, staff members didn't have experience to assess a molecule or a biological. That's enough of a criteria to say we're taking this out of the fast track pathway. And generally, products on the fast track pathway are using data from other OECD nations, the EU, Australia, the US, etc. And what we're trying to do, we're not trying to cut or shortcuts at all or cut study. It's more to utilize the data obtained and generated overseas to supplement the data from trials in New Zealand. So that one's a really, really big one, as I've called it the killer clause. So 6 things I feel every grower needs to know, and I'll just read through these. A tiered pathway is created. A rapid, straightforward, complex, simpler applications should well move faster. So that is a good thing, should it all work well. The rapid pathway has a built-in exit, as I've just mentioned. Officials can pull your application at any time, no criteria needed. New administrative notice powers. Officials can change the rules without Parliament and without consulting you, the grower, and myself, in fact. So it's kind of removing power from the system at the moment and pulling it back in to either EPA or the MPI/ACBM, which in a way can speed things up, but that's at the criteria or the discretion of those ministries of unelected people, which is a bit of a worry for me. There was no regulatory impact statement done for the ACBM bill, which is really, really interesting. Not many bills go through beyond first reading without a regulatory impact statement. So I find that strange myself. No independent cost benefit analysis was ever done on Bill 305. Again, that's really, really strange. And it's an interesting read if you're interested in the political side and how Parliament works, but the independent cost benefit for Bill 304 is really interesting. And that came out in July 25, and it was done by Penny Simmons, whom was the Environment Minister back last year. And the 3 quick wins the industry needs most don't require these bills, and they haven't happened in 15 months. So just those three key industry needs: overseas approval recognised, low risk changes self-assessed in the system, and trial products fast-tracked. And it's a real shame that we're coming on 15, 16 months and we still haven't seen any changes to that or speed up of the system. There's also a hidden compulsory levy, which is embedded in Bill 304, and I'm perplexed that in the explanatory note or the introduction to Parliament, that was never discussed, and that rate is set by a minister. And I'm not controversial, but to me, a levy in this context is another tax. So I'll go into that a little bit more shortly. So hopefully that's digestible, those key 6 points I feel we all need to know. What's actually missing from these bills? There's no statutory timeframes, so no legal requirement for a decision with any specific period or specified period, pardon me, in any pathway tier, which is that's hugely odd to me because it removes any accountability. This current system, whilst it's not working well at all, in my opinion, to get category C or new innovation material through, to just pull out all statutory timeframes is a step backwards for me. Again, no cap on information requests. Regulators can keep asking for more data. The bills don't time limit this or limit in general, and applications can stay in limbo. So again, just the removal of what I call accountability is worrying. Again, I've touched on this, but no mandatory acceptance of overseas data. Officials can still demand reanalysis of, say, EU-approved studies already done by trusted regulators. And again, I just stress that is not that we want shortcuts being done. It's just using that robust data to supplement the data generated in New Zealand. And again, I touched on it again, no accountability mechanism, no reporting on how often the killer clause is used, no public register of time frame performance. So again, accountability, I feel, will have less visibility to see how the system is working through submissions, which we dearly need. AFANZ, which is Animal and Plant Health New Zealand, they've been doing pulse checks, and the first pulse check was in November 25, and that was pivotal on the 16 recommendations that were supported by the ministries and the government, and the scores weren't great at all, and this is by members of that group. So 80.8% of industry members reported no change in ACVM new product timeframes. 94.4% reported no change in EPA red tape and complexity, and 0% of members reported an improvement in applicant experience. So that's rather mind-bending, really, when we need a robust system to improve greatly. And that's kind of mirrors November 25 reports or pulse check results as well. So really, really worrying for me. When I go back to just the summary of engagement, which was a report pre the regulatory study, let's say, during that time, 0 direct meetings were held with growers and farmers of an 18-month review. That worries me and myself. The product groups are great, but no actual face-to-face meeting with growers and farmers. I find that very, very strange because your thoughts and needs are vital. There were 5 direct meetings with manufacturers in the AFANZ organisation during the same period, and 10 direct meetings with government experts, during the same period. They seem very odd to me. I think this is for Food and Fibre New Zealand, so those on the in the coal face, I think, should be met with. So that's just something I think is important moving forward. We need to get more growers working on these and ministries, etc., speaking with growers. As I touched on, is there a hidden tax, which I said levy, but I call that a tax in Bill 304. Clause 20 inserts a compulsory levy on all hazardous substance importers and manufacturers. So that's granola, fertilizer, fuel, oil, ag chem. And it's just strange that this has just been slipped in, so to speak, and no discussion about it. So it's firstly it's compulsory and universal, no opt-out, no exemption for small operators, rates set by the minister, not by Parliament, no vote on the quantum, stacks on top of existing EPA charges, an additional cost, not a replacement. Not mentioned, as I touched on, in the bill's explanatory note or the minister's first reading speech. So this is the worrying thing for me. When these levies slash tax come on, they'll be passed directly back to the growers, and that's really worrying for me. That could be, I've honestly got no idea what that fee could look like, but again, another tax that a grower will be lumped with. Again, worrying for me. So a little bit more, genuine improvement or the same system in new clothes. So the tiered pathway architecture, as I said, I think that's really improved, but the proof will be in the pudding, how the system works. Statutory timeframes, totally absent. I'm extremely worried about that. Accountability mechanisms, absence. As I touched on 2 slides ago, grower voice and design, not heard at all. Operational culture change, I don't see any large changes happening in that. And respectfully, and it's nothing personal, I think we need a massive culture change in these ministries. And quick wins, no bill needed, not delivered. As I touched on, we're 15, 16 months in, and some rapid changes that could have been done without the bill has not been delivered. Again, worrying. So what can you do? I think making a submission is a huge thing. The select committee process is the only real opportunity to put grower concerns on the official record. Time is really against us. Interesting to note with these 2 bills, generally it's 6 months. These have been 3 months, and from the first introduction, the submissions closed in a lot shorter time frame. So Monday, 15th of June, of which is next Monday upcoming, is cut-off day. So as I say, volume matters. Every submission is counted, and I urge everyone to take the opportunity to have your voice heard. Now, just on a side note, I've been working with well over 100 growers that I've shared. I got asked, which is humbling, to share a submission template, which I've done a submission template for each bill. You're most welcome. It's humbling on me, but I'm willing to share those with you to help work on what the submission will look like. Now, Hort NZ are doing the submission. It's far more detailed than what I've done. I've stuck with 3 to 4 key points in each bill because I think it's far simpler as how it is going to affect us as growers. If I just move on to the next slide, how to make your submission. It's simple and straightforward, and it gets your voice on the record. So step 1 is to go to Parliament New Zealand and search the Primary Production Committee submissions. Bills 304 are both open, and then you state your interest. I always state you're a grower, you rely on products governed by these bills. Say that plainly, and it very much counts. And then raise what matters to you. Step 3, time frames, the killer clause, the levy, the 3 quick wins, your experience on farm, and then submit, as I say, by 15th of June. Even a short submission is valid. Every voice received is recorded and must be considered. And the product groups are in general putting forward a submission, but I really urge that the more individual growers we can get to bolster the product groups and NGOs, etc., is nothing but a positive. And moving forward, that's about it. I do hope I haven't gone too quick. I'm just cognizant of time. So discussion, and I may pass back to Cherie, pardon me, to hopefully we've got some questions. Sarah, I might jump out of the presentation, I think. Is that
Yes.
best to do, or?
Yes, it's fine to jump out. We haven't received any questions, but if you want to raise your hand, I can open it up so you can speak your question instead of typing it in, because sometimes it can be quite hard to ask a question when it's typed. Okay, we have our first question. Yeah, James, if you want to ask a question.
Thanks, Sheree. Just want to acknowledge the work that you've done, Fenton, to raise this issue. You've been very strong in championing this cause. So just, hats off and credit there for that.
Very much, thank you.
I guess my question or debate around the levy, really, because it's probably the more contentious of the topic, so why not? Would acknowledging there's no kind of parameters set around the levy apart from the Treasury guidelines, but would you be in support of a levy if it solved everything? If it did fund the EPA to kind of get on and get rid of the backlog and everything else, or just you don't see that happening, so it just becomes another tax? Yeah.
True. No, good question, James. And how I think about it is my previous decade in a global where we've seen a lift. They at the time it was we saw a lift in levies, and we got no lift in productivity, so to speak. So it didn't actually speed anything up. So my personal view is there's a little bit of a shyness from industry or global players and people submitting registrations that we've had a levy lift and saw no direct results from that. But in general, I'm very pro a lift in levy if we see the results. So I guess it's kind of like a catch-22. They'll be saying we need a lift to fund more people, etc., and just trust the process, and we will get a lift in productivity. So I'm trying not to be cynical. I can only go on past experience, but yeah, you could well be right. So, and yeah, hope that answers that.
Right. Yep. Does anyone else have a question? If you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Okay. Yes.
Hi, here. I just from
yeah. Sorry, can you speak up? You'll need to.
Sorry, this will help.
That's better.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fenton. It's very great. It's very clear on the messages. And thank you for all the hard work. I do have a question around the culture. We were aware of that, but I'm just wanting to seek your opinion on how we can actually put that forward in the submission, or do you see any place in the ad or in the bill that could potentially make that happen?
Again, not being cheesy, but very good question. I think it's a very hard topic to bring up without it feeling by some individuals as being personal. And I see that on my LinkedIn writing. I try and just broach it very gently. I go into a little bit more in my Substack writing, but yeah, it's a personal feeling for me that there's a culture of why we can't make something work as opposed to not making it work. Just I feel it's an attitude thing. It's not personal. All of the individuals in the ministries are great, but I just think it's just kind of bogged down in why we can't do something, not why we can. And that's the worry. But if you have any magic ingredients, how we can incorporate that in a submission, I'm all ears. And I have thought a lot about it, so we must have been sharing mind thoughts, because should I go into that level? But so probably haven't really answered it, but a tough one.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
I guess, Chinua, like your statement or clause about precautionary what is it? Precautionary something, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, precautionary approach.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty on point, right? Kind of saying, you know, whenever there's a risk, they kind of go in favour of opposing, I guess, or making it harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like a easy comeback is that, and I touched on it a couple of times. No one is advocating shortcuts or not doing the tasks properly, and it's too easy to say the slowness is because it's deemed we wish for shortcuts. Not at all. I'm definitely not wanting that. Food safety, etc. New Zealand Inc. brand, etc. We don't want anything detrimental to that, but it's just finding that magic balance of being progressive and forward thinking and a little bit the commercial nature, etc. I think just need a different view, really.
Has anyone else got any questions for Fenton?
Tim, what's your approach on the what's your thoughts on the bills? Tim, I think, is it Tim Herman there? Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I haven't read them. Time is precious. Something that I'm sitting here thinking about, Fenton, was the comment around the statutory timeframes and the fact that they're being removed, but they haven't really been very useful anyway because they regularly fail to meet them, and no one does anything about it because no one wants to stir the pot, so to speak.
Yes.
And get a comeback. So it is. I hear what you're saying, that they're saying we're making changes, but the changes they're making, it's almost making things worse and harder. And it is worrying to see all these deficiencies that you've highlighted, that others are highlighting elsewhere, that is, not really going to be very helpful at all. And that does really concern me.
Yeah, definitely. Myself, it does, and don't think I'm not remembering and just that time frames haven't been adhered to, but I think it almost, I know it kind of needs a reset. I think things got a lot of slippage through the COVID period because there weren't no accountability. We're working with this global pandemic slowdown, and I don't think it's a fault, but I don't think it's kind of picked up since then. And I don't know how we can function when there's not accountability or connection to some sort of time frames. I think July last year, 22 category Cs in the queue, and we're averaging 3 to 4 on a good year. That's 7 years just to catch up. So I'm very in favour of timelines for accountability.
Yeah, but what's the penalty if they don't do it? If they don't meet it, it sort of doesn't really work that well. And I agree with the discussion on the levies before. If it was put back into the system to improve it, that'd be great. But I'm guessing it just goes into the consolidated pot and it doesn't necessarily come back to where it's needed.
Yeah. Well, maybe there needs to be more acceptance that new innovation. I could go on another rant about, to double our horticultural exports, we need innovation. There's some great biologicals coming through that I'm very fearful that biologicals will be harder to get through than synthetic chemistry. And I just think we need time frames to begin to get our innovation through. And you and I both know I'm seeing it really play out with growers now, that there's just nothing new coming, and just the ramifications of that are really hard to talk about and write about, but we're seeing it daily now for me. It's just a real lag now, and I think we're in serious position. Hence my passion for this topic. It's no other reason than I want our industry to be in a great shape.
Yes, it's now you mentioned the biologicals. I was interested also, like why the 9th question did not touch on the biopesticides. Did you leave that out deliberately?
Yeah, I
just
definitely, it's in my mind and in my mind a whole lot, and just I didn't want to list out huge. Yourselves have done those really big ones, AFAN's, Submission Will Be, etc. Just some real key, hard, not hard in a negative way, but hard hitting, that we really need to see some changes. Edwin. Sorry, Edwin, you're on mute still.
Here we go. I was looking at my speaker button.
Oh, no problem.
Hey, I was wondering about the alignment between the two. What you think could be done there, with both bills being sort of looked at the same time.
Yes, it's interesting. So remember the magical omnibus bill that was in discussion second half of H2 25 and earlier on in 2026. That's been split into these two bills. Now, I don't want to, yeah, I can pontificate, I guess, as to why that's happened. I've tried to look as well at what is needed in these two bills in order to help the gene tech bill. So that's interesting in itself. My own personal opinion, and I'm not a lawyer at all. I'm an agronomist farmer. So, but I think these two bills have facts in them or changes, etc., that are needed for the gene tech bill. So I honestly don't know, Edwin, and I'm really open to any discussion or thoughts as to why the omnibus has been split into these two bills.
I'll be honest with you, my submission for one looks very similar to the other, so that's sort of why I was asking.
Yes, yeah, and mine does as well, Edwin. So yeah, you kind of, because it's often spoken about as if it's one, if that makes sense, and perhaps that's because the first draft was an omnibus bill and etc. So yeah.
Are there any other questions before we close it off? No, that looks like it. Thank you so much, Fenton. That was really insightful, and thank you for sharing that information with us. Have you got anything that you want to wrap up with?
No, just appreciate those that have done a submission. It is important. I'm not just on a rant about that. I think these are some massive changes that will affect our food and fibre sector, and that's we need passion on that. If you do, please reach out if you would like to see the submissions I've done. It's humbling sharing them. I get a little embarrassed about it because a lot of people say, "Can I have your template just to sign and send in?" And myself, I'm very interested. You need to have a bit of an understanding of what myself. I wouldn't sign something like that without knowing a little bit more, but I'm open to sharing that. Not a problem at all.
Great. We can include your contact details with the email that goes out.
Yep,
excellent.
Not a problem at all.
Thank you so much for everyone who joined us.